I want to start with a simple question. One of the first things I'll ask most of my clients. What brings you joy? Something you genuinely enjoy, something that makes you feel alive. And you would be surprised how many people can't answer that question. I'm not talking about people who leave boring lives. I'm talking about people who are accomplished and driven and running companies, raising families, building things, yet they'll sit in silence with that question. And that silence tells me a lot why they are not sleeping. Most sleep advice is about what not to do. No caffeine after 2, no screens before bed, lower the temperature of the room, take magnesium. These things do matter, and I'll talk about them myself, but they treat sleep in a vacuum. And I spent 10 years barely sleeping. I saw 25 different doctors. I did 6 sleep studies. I spent over 180 grand trying to fix my sleep from the outside in. The supplements, the routines, the protocols, the devices. I did all that. And the one thing that actually made the real difference, it wasn't any of that. It was recognizing that I had optimized my life down to pure efficiency. Work, collapse, repeat. There was nothing that genuinely made me feel alive anymore. And a nervous system in that state doesn't switch off at night, no matter how dark the room is. So what I want you to hear, you can have a perfect bedtime routine, and you can take every supplement. You can do all the breathing techniques, but if your day feels flat, if you have nothing during the day that makes you feel genuinely alive, then your nervous system stays in a low-grade survival state. And your body struggles to fully surrender then into sleep because it's not satiated. Joy and connection and play isn't always the whole answer, but they're almost always the most overlooked and underestimated pieces of the puzzle. And I almost never see anyone talking about it. Let me tell you about how it actually happens, because it's not really dramatic, it's quiet. It's not like you wake up one day and decide to remove play from your life, right? It's a slow trade, a gradual swap from aliveness for productivity. And it happens gradually that you don't even notice until one day you ask yourself, or someone asks you, what do you enjoy? And you genuinely don't know. At first, this change can look reasonable. You postpone the thing that lights you up because something urgent has come up. Then it happens again and again, and after a while, postponing becomes a permanent state. The guitar stays in the corner, the book stays on the shelf. The friend you genuinely enjoy seeing is becoming someone you have been meaning to call for months. And the things that used to make you feel like yourself start to feel selfish, unproductive, or not aligned with what really matters most right now. Everything tends to then become binary. We're working or collapsing and no space for play, for real connection, for these small moments that actually make you feel alive. I worked with a sleep client, let's call him James, who had built something genuinely impressive. The business was doing so well. By most people's measures, his life looked great. But when I asked him where the joy, the play, the connection was in his life, he looked at me and he couldn't answer. Not because he was boring, but because somewhere along the way he had made the trade so gradually he hadn't noticed it happening. We didn't overhaul his life. I just asked him to set one small intention. Not a new habit, but one real moment of connection that week. So he decided to carve out quality time with a friend. Not for networking, just to be there, to actually enjoy someone's company. Then we checked in the following week. His sleep had already started to make real shifts, adding an hour to sleep, which hadn't happened in years. One afternoon, one genuine moment of connection, and something in his nervous system let go. Now let me give you some science as to why this matters, specifically around sleep. Your nervous system has 3 primary states: fight or flight, the mobilize for threat, the shutdown, the collapse and withdrawal, and then what we call socially engaged state, where you actually feel genuinely safe, connected, and present. When your life becomes about work and collapse, your nervous system never fully lands in that third state. It cycles between these 2 high alert and shutdown places over and over. And the thing about sleep is, real restorative sleep requires your nervous system to genuinely believe it's safe to let go, not just because the room is dark and the temperature is right. That on a deeper level, everything is going to be okay. And a nervous system that never gets to feel genuinely alive, that never experiences that real connection, it will stay dysregulated, it will stay vigilant, it will stay waiting. So you lie there with a perfectly optimized bedtime routine and yet a nervous system that hasn't had a single moment today that has felt genuinely alive, connected, in play. And your body quietly resists sleep. Joy, play, connection aren't luxuries. For your nervous system, they are regulatory signals, evidence that life is okay, evidence that it's safe to rest. And this is not the whole picture, of course, of why people struggle with sleep, but it's an important piece that almost is entirely missing from the conversation. So I want to say something about loneliness that might land differently than you expect. Loneliness is not about being alone. You can be surrounded by people in meetings all day, on calls, at dinner with family, and be profoundly lonely. Lonely is when you're not really seen, when every interaction feels like a performance, when you're there, but you're not really there. And that kind of loneliness keeps your nervous system in a state of quiet activation, because on a primal level, disconnection feels unsafe. And there's a concept in this nervous system science called co-regulation. You've probably heard of it. When you are genuinely present with someone who is genuinely present with you, not performing, not managing, just actually together, your nervous systems start to synchronize, to settle one another. And it's one of the most powerful regulatory experiences available to us human beings. In my own worst years of insomnia, I wasn't just isolated by my schedule, I was isolated by my shame. I'd gotten so numb that I didn't know how to be around people without performing. I was terrified of being seen because I felt like I was not enough. But the real version of me was struggling. And the turning point wasn't a supplement or a protocol. It was letting someone actually see me, slowly letting myself feel what I had been running from. And that, being genuinely witnessed, started to shift something in my nervous system that nothing else could. Real connection is not a nice to have. For your nervous system, it's a regulatory medicine. And when your body feels genuinely safe and genuinely seen, sleep becomes possible in a way it simply wasn't before. So what do you actually do with this? And I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting a big life overhaul. I'm not telling you to quit your job or dismantle your responsibilities. What I'm pointing to is smaller, it's quieter. In my experience, it's significantly more powerful than most people would expect. Start with one question. What did you genuinely love before the productivity became a primary identity? Not what you think you should enjoy, what actually lit you up. And then make space for one small version of that this week. Not in your spare time because you probably don't have much. In your real time, in time you create for this. Even just 15 minutes, not perfectly, just genuinely. Then ask yourself, who makes you feel safe? Who can I be around without performing, and reach out to them, not as a problem to solve, not to catch up on logistics, but to actually just be together. These aren't sleep hacks. They're invitations to slowly bring your nervous system back to life, to give it evidence during the day that the world is okay, that you are okay, that rest is something you deserve rather than something you're waiting to earn. And what I've seen both in my own journey and with people I work with is that when this piece starts to shift, sleep often shifts with it. Not always immediately, but something changes. The nights get quieter and the body starts to trust again. I want to close with something simple. If you can't answer the question I asked at the beginning of this video, what brings you joy? That's worth really paying attention to, not as a reason to feel bad by any means, but as information, as something your nervous system has been trying to communicate. And you don't have to figure this out alone. And honestly, this particular work, the joy work, the connection, the life underneath the sleep work, it happens better in community than in isolation, because that's the whole point. This is a big part of what we do inside my sleep support community. Not just the biology and the tools, but the real conversations about what's actually going on in life. Every week on a live call with people who are doing the work alongside you. There's over 20 courses covering every dimension of sleep and what affects it from a biological, psychological, and emotional level, with personalized sleep roadmap, a 7-day nervous system reset, and people who understand because they're going through it too. So the link's in the description. And in the meantime, this week, find one small thing that makes you feel alive and let yourself have it. Rest well.